The billionaire CEO, stood by the window of his corner office. His reflection stared back at him, tall, impeccably dressed, face carved with ambition but shadowed by something emptier, fatigue, maybe. He had everything most men dreamed of: power, wealth, and recognition. Yet lately, none of it stirred him anymore. The applause of boardrooms, the luxury cars, the penthouse overlooking Central Park, all of it felt hollow. He sighed and loosened his tie. Down in the lobby, a man named Marcus Bell, the night janitor, pushed his cleaning cart quietly across the marble floor. Marcus was in his late 50s, graying hair tucked beneath a faded cap, uniform spotless despite years of wear. He was the kind of man most people didn't notice: steady, polite, invisible. But there was something about the way he moved, calm, deliberate, as though every small task mattered. Marcus never complained. He never drew attention to himself. He just did his work, sweeping the floors, emptying the bins, humming softly as he went, and every night before leaving, he'd stop by the lobby's massive glass doors and whisper a quiet prayer. That night, Ethan took the private elevator down, hoping for a few minutes of solitude before heading home. He rarely saw the janitorial staff, but tonight, the universe seemed to arrange an unplanned meeting. As the elevator doors opened, he saw Marcus polishing the floor near the reception desk. "Good evening, sir," Marcus said, straightening up. Ethan gave a small nod. "Evening." He hesitated for a second, watching the older man's easy composure. "You're here late." Marcus smiled faintly. "Building's a big one. It doesn't clean itself." Ethan chuckled softly. "True enough." He started to walk toward the exit when the main glass doors burst open. The sound that followed shattered the quiet, the sharp, jarring click of a gun being cocked. Two masked men rushed in, both holding pistols. "Everybody on the floor," one shouted. His voice was shaky, young, desperate. Ethan froze. The world tilted. His mind raced: a robbery? Here? His heart hammered against his ribs as he raised his hands. Marcus stood just a few feet away, his mop still in hand, but what struck Ethan most wasn't fear, it was the stillness in Marcus's eyes. Calm. Focused. "Empty the registers," the other man barked, waving his gun at the security guard behind the counter. "Move." The terrified guard fumbled with trembling hands. Ethan tried to think, to calculate, to find a way out. He was used to being in control, but this was chaos, and chaos terrified him. Marcus, however, slowly set his mop aside. His voice, when he spoke, was low, even, almost soothing. "You don't want to do this," he said gently. The younger of the two robbers turned toward him. "Shut up, old man." But Marcus didn't flinch. He raised his hands slightly, palms open. "You're scared. I get it. But pointing that gun won't fix what's broken inside you." The gunman's jaw trembled. "You don't know anything about me." Marcus took a careful step forward. "You'd be surprised." Ethan held his breath. Something about Marcus's tone, that quiet strength, began to shift the air. The older man's voice carried no judgment, no panic, only compassion. The taller robber barked, "Stop talking or I'll." "Or you'll what?" Marcus interrupted softly. "You'll throw away your life for a handful of cash. I've cleaned these floors for years, son. Seen men come in wearing $1,000 suits and still crying inside. Money doesn't heal pain. But you can still walk away tonight with something better, your soul intact." The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Ethan could barely believe what he was witnessing. A janitor, an unarmed, middle-aged janitor, was facing down two men with guns, and somehow, calming them. The younger robber's hands began to shake. Tears welled in his eyes. "We just need money, my brother, he's sick." Marcus nodded slowly. Then you don't need to steal. You need help. Put the gun down, and I promise you, I'll help you find a way. The robber blinked, stunned. The security guard had discreetly pressed the silent alarm, but before the police could arrive, the robbers looked at each other, and, almost in disbelief, lowered their weapons. The sound of the guns clattering on the marble echoed through the lobby. Ethan exhaled sharply, his chest tight with shock. Moments later, the police stormed in, guns drawn, and took the two men into custody without resistance. When it was all over, Marcus just quietly picked up his mop and went back to cleaning the floor where the guns had fallen. Ethan couldn't move. He just watched him, the humility, the peace, the quiet dignity of a man who just defused a robbery like it was an everyday chore. "Why did you do that?" Ethan asked finally, stepping closer. Marcus looked up with that same calm smile. "Because fear makes people forget who they are. Someone has to remind them." Ethan stared, speechless. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of Marcus standing fearlessly before the robbers replayed in his mind again and again. There was something about it that struck deeper than anything he'd ever seen in a boardroom. The next morning, he called his assistant. "Find out everything you can about the janitor who works nights, Marcus Bell." Marcus lived in a small, two-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. His walls were lined with pictures, not of luxury or travel, but of family. His late wife, gone 5 years now. His daughter, Angela, studying nursing while working part-time at a diner. Life had never been easy for him, but he'd made peace with hardship. He believed every challenge had a lesson, every person a story. When his phone rang that morning, he almost ignored it. But then he saw the number, Harrington Enterprises. "This is Marcus," he said softly. "Mr. Bell," came a polite voice, "Mr. Harrington would like to see you in his office today, if you're available." Marcus hesitated. "Me? In his office?" "Yes, sir." He said, "It's important." He put on his cleanest uniform, tucked his cap under his arm, and made his way to the skyscraper once again, but this time, not as a janitor starting his shift, but as a man being summoned to the top floor. When the elevator doors opened, Ethan was waiting for him. "Marcus," he said warmly, extending a hand. "I owe you more than I can ever express." Marcus shook his hand, slightly uncomfortable. "You don't owe me anything, sir. I just did what anyone should do." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's the thing. Most people wouldn't have. You were calm, wise, brave. I'd like to hear more about you." "Sit, please." Marcus sat, his hands folded politely in his lap. Ethan studied him for a moment, noticing the roughness of his hands, the quiet composure in his eyes. "Tell me," Ethan said, "how did you stay so calm? Most men would have panicked." Marcus chuckled softly. "Well, sir, panic never cleaned a mess. You can't scrub a floor if your hands are shaking." Ethan laughed, a genuine laugh, the first in weeks. "You're a remarkable man, Marcus." Marcus shrugged. "Just trying to live right." There was a pause. Ethan leaned forward. "What if I told you I wanted to do something for you, something big?" Marcus frowned slightly. "You've already thanked me. That's enough." "No," Ethan said, his voice steady. "You changed something in me last night. I realized I've spent my life chasing the wrong kind of success. You showed me real strength, the kind that comes from character, not money. I want to help you. Tell me what you need." Marcus looked thoughtful, then shook his head. "I don't need much, sir. But there are a lot of folks out there who do. Maybe if you really want to help, find a way to give them hope." Ethan sat back, silent. He had expected Marcus to ask for money, maybe a promotion. Not this. Hope. That word followed him like a shadow for days. Over the next week, the story spread. Security footage of Marcus calmly talking down the robbers went viral. The world watched, astonished, as this quiet janitor became a symbol of grace under pressure. News outlets called him the hero of Harrington Tower. Reporters swarmed the building, but Marcus avoided them. He said little, smiled humbly, and kept working. Yet behind the scenes, Ethan Harrington was making plans that would soon shake the world.